Says I'm live, waiting for people to come in.
Flash. And there it is. Flash. And there it is. Flash.
Time to call Bob to fix the problem. That's for sure. That's for sure. I bet Bob could fix it. I am up and going on YouTube. Hey, sister. Good to see you. How do I sound? Can you see me and hear me and everything? Because I was live before and nobody could see me or hear me. Awesome. Man, that number jumped up really quick. Well, let's go ahead and start. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Welcome to the first episode of That's Not a Thing with Mr. Global, Matt Randolph, and Jill, the moderator. Got off to a rough start this afternoon, didn't we? So today I will start off with oil prices. Oil is down today, $71 a barrel. Natural gas is up 10 cents, $3.73. Gas prices have inched up half an inch to $3.16 a gallon. And for today's thing, that is not a thing. I'm going to do one of these every day right off the bat. I got a message or a comment on TikTok. Someone said that Donald Trump claimed that we're going to supply all of the oil that India needs. Now, I want to clarify, I cannot find where Donald Trump said that. But that doesn't mean that a bunch of people won't take it and run with it. Kind of like the Gulf of America thing. Donald Trump never said that either, that he changed the name to Gulf of America so we could drill there. That's not a thing Donald Trump ever said. That's just something Republicans came up with because they think he's a genius. We currently export or send India about 250,000 barrels of oil a day. They import in total about 4.8 million barrels a day. We're not exporting any less to them than we were under the previous Trump administration. We're exporting the same amount as we were last time Donald Trump was president. Oh, and by the way, our current oil exports in total are 4.3 million barrels a day. We couldn't send them the oil they need even if we wanted to. So, no, that's not a thing. That's not a thing. Okay. So, this isn't going to help. It's not going to stomp that out. I'm sure it'll be all over the internet for months. Jill, how are you doing today? Jill's on TikTok over here.
I'm doing pretty good.
You doing good?
Yep. So far, so good.
Man, this YouTube just kicks ass as far as kicking my ass. I've had so much trouble with this website. Kersey says Donald Trump said it live in a bilateral meeting with Indian Prime Minister. That would be Modi. He also said we produce more oil than anyone. Yeah, I'm not saying he couldn't say it or didn't say it. I'm just saying I couldn't verify it, and if I can't verify something, I'll say that. But whether he said it or didn't say it, his supporters will say it no matter what he says. That's why I addressed it anyway, even though I couldn't verify that he said it. You need That's Not a Thing merch. Good afternoon, Randy, Dave, Captain Fantastic, Kersey. Thank you for being here again. Robert, Kristen Toll, thank you for being here. Jill Pearson's back. I need to sell t-shirts. That's not a thing. Zach is here from Muskogee. Zach is an Okie from Muskogee. I actually have a lot of family in Muskogee, Zach. Fed Up, thank you for being here. Lorianne, Roman, thank you for coming. Karen Wu. Over on TikTok. GBW, thank you from Chicago for arriving. I guess we'll jump right into our Q&A session. So if you guys have questions, feel free to ask. and we'll get started. Red Boots Production. Thank you. Thank you. Dying Breed Garage is back today. Burley, only trust Mr. Global. Will Russian oil coming back on the global market now that they've won in Ukraine make a big difference in the price of oil? I didn't realize they won. I didn't know that was a thing. Is that a thing that's not a thing on the show called That's Not a Thing? Regardless of the status, whether they've won or not, I would make the argument they have not won at all, considering Ukraine is nailing them inside their own borders. The Russian oil is still on the market. We haven't taken any Russian oil off the market. That we've just sanctioned the way people purchase it. Yeah, it's just being bought with foreign currencies. It's still on the market completely, 100%. Yeah, still on the market. Now, that doesn't mean that an end to the conflict wouldn't lower gas prices, because anytime you reduce conflict in other parts of the world, you reduce oil and gas prices. But it won't be a function of there being less oil on the market. It would be a function of there being less conflict in the world, right? What's your prediction for oil and gas industry in Canada? Should we prepare for a repeat of the 2016 crash? No, I don't think you need to prepare for anything that looks like 2016. That was one of the worst crashes in history. And I could be wrong about that, but I'm about 98% certain it's not going to be that bad. Red Boots, you are known as Maggie M. Okay. If fracking was never discovered, what would our oil industry in the US look like? And would gas be much more expensive? We would be producing a lot more oil in the Gulf of Mexico. We would be producing a lot more oil in Alaska and those areas. We would be producing a lot less oil onshore in the United States. Just an unbelievable, I can't even say, probably less than half of what we're currently producing onshore is what we would be producing if fracking did not exist. I figured the sanctions kept many buyers away. It does keep buyers away, and the oil is cheap. But China's a big buyer, and India is a big buyer. Speaking of India, India is set to become the country with the largest growth in oil demand, surpassing China. This is something that I've been predicting for like 10 years, that India, who has an emerging economy, that's literally about to just become a huge global economy, similar to China about, I don't know, 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. Their economy is about to just grow like crazy. They're going to become the next China when it comes to oil demand growth around the world. They're going to be the number one driver of oil demand growth, which means they'll be the number one driver of what happens with oil prices and gas prices. They are displacing China in that role. And that's a pretty big deal. Mr. Globa, India is still growing. China is starting to shrink. China's definitely kind of peaked, but we'll have to see where they go from there. But India is about to take off. We had a recent earthquake in Ohio. Yay, fracking. Where was that earthquake at? I'd like to know. Is that good or bad for us about India? It's neither good nor bad. It's just kind of it's a big shift in how the global energy supply chain is going to work over the next 10 years and how it's worked over the last 15 years. And I've been telling people for years how these up and coming countries, emerging economies, they always replace the economies that rise quickly. And now we're starting to see it, right? We're starting to see it with India. So it doesn't have a good or bad effect on us, particularly. It's just one of those things that I find interesting. Can you speak to we sold our biggest refinery in Texas to the Saudis? So by we, America doesn't own a refinery, okay? So we didn't sell anything. Um, so how that worked was Shell and Saudi Aramco owned that refinery already in a 50-50 joint venture. They owned a bunch of refineries together, retail outlets, terminals. They split up and split their assets. And so Saudi Arabia already owned half of that refinery when they took control of the rest of it. They got their half of their stuff and Shell got their half of their stuff. But we didn't sell anything. uh, Basically Shell, which is a European company, by the way, they gave up their half of it. That's how that worked. Why doesn't renewable diesel come up more often in the news? I don't know. I don't know. But I guess they don't want to talk about it. That is the Motiva refinery. I believe that's in Freeport. Did the sale have to be approved by the government? I'm not sure if the FTC got involved in that because it wasn't one company gaining a bunch of market share and value in one space. It was two companies that already owned it all, dividing it 50-50. Right? So when it was all over with, they both essentially still had, as far as value or market share goes, they still had what they started with. It was just a different set of assets. I can look and see if the FTC had to approve it. If I was going to guess, I would say they maybe they didn't. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But even if they did, it wouldn't have been a big deal. It wouldn't have been like Exxon buying Pioneer. It wouldn't have been like Chevron and Hess. It wouldn't have been like one of those deals. Everyone, please like the live over here on TikTok. Just hit me right in the face right there. Just hit me right in the face, just like that. Like the live, get the engagement up. Feel free to gift the moderator at any time. You need a standard list of that's not a thing, so you don't spend the rest of your life answering the same questions. Well, I'm look, I'm going to spend the rest of my life answering a lot of the same questions because just because I've answered a question doesn't mean everybody saw the question and heard the answers. So, Lorianne, thank you so much. $10 super chat. Thank you so much for that, Lorianne. Thank you for coming into my live or my show. Do we call it a show now or a live, Jill?
I don't know, a show, I guess, now at this point.
Okay, Zayden, I know you have spoken on your dislike for California's energy policy towards fossil fuels, but isn't that their goal? Is it bad because they're not being truthful about their responsibility in price hikes? So, to be clear, I don't really have a problem with California's policy regarding energy if that's what people in the state of California voted for. If that's what they want, that's not my business, whether it's good or bad policy, whatever. The problem I have is with Gavin Newsom blaming all of the failures on his policy on oil and gas companies. That's the problem I have. His policies are massive failures when it comes to how it affects the pocketbooks of people that live in California. That just absolutely cannot be denied by any way, shape, or form. That you restrict the primary source of energy in a state, and then you wonder why prices skyrocket. You install a bunch of renewable energy in a state that has extremely high energy demand, and then you can't understand why that's expensive as well. Electricity rates in California, I think, are growing faster than any other state in the country. Electricity, energy, and power is skyrocketing in the state of California. It is unbelievably expensive. And the way I view this is is that, if everything is expensive due to policies, that is California has one of the highest poverty rates in the country. California has a lot of people that live in poverty, and how are these people supposed to dig themselves out of poverty because Gavin Newsom expects everyone to go buy a new EV or expects everyone to buy solar or wind? There are costs attached to these policies. And if he was just honest about the costs attached to the policies, you would never hear me say anything about Gavin Newsom. Just be honest about it. Quit blaming your failures on on other, you know, people. If someone doesn't want to operate in your state because of your policy, that's an issue with your policy. You have refiners in the state of California closing down and leaving because they don't want to deal with and walking away from potentially billions of dollars in profits. What is that? You know what I mean? That's not normal. Companies don't normally walk away from potentially billions of dollars. So for a company to walk away from that, it's got to be really bad, right? It's got to be really bad. So it's not that I oppose the policy, I oppose the lies. If Gavin Newsom told everyone it's going to be expensive and then it was expensive and they're fine with that, then no harm, no foul. But that's not the case because he's a politician. He can't help it. He's going to lie. And that's really my issue. It's not so much the policy. I once read in the New York Times financial section that it takes 9/10 of a gallon of petroleum to make 1 gallon of ethanol. Is that true? I cannot confirm that. I do not know if that's true. That seems a little high, but I don't know. And I have no problem telling you I don't know. Thank you, CC Windsor. I was serious about you running for president in 2028. Lori. That's not a thing, Lori. It's just not. I, you know, I I really appreciate the fact that you think I would. I don't think I would do that good of a job. Like I really don't. Why is Saudi Arabia investing billions in energy in America? They aren't yet. So I don't know that they are. I don't know that they are. We get told often under administrations run by this person that things are happening that aren't happening. So I'll believe it when I see it. And then when I see it, and then when I believe it, then I'll talk about it. But I don't think they are. I really don't. Karen says I can't be a politician because I'm not a liar.
She's
Well,
right.
well, I mean, I can lie. I have the ability. Captain Fantastic, thank you so much. $5 super chat. Captain Fantastic. Running for office may not be a thing, but I am writing you in anyway. That would be awesome. You take a picture of that, send it to me. Thank you so much, Captain Fantastic. Do I remember correctly? You saying they're building a new refinery in Oklahoma. The refinery in Oklahoma is in the same place it was like 3 years ago. It's they're looking for a plot of land. They had land. They had a deal. They had a contract. That contract fell through. I don't know why that deal fell through. I don't know if it was a funding issue or like I don't know why it fell through. That's something they won't tell me, but it did fall through. So now they're looking for a new spot. Um, they have the green light from the state of Oklahoma. They have permits in place. Um, but this is part of building a refinery. People ask me all the time, how long does it take? It takes a long ass time. I told them it could take 4 years. It could take 10 years. You just, it's one of those things. Thank you, Charlie Smith. Are you going to have Robert Rapier on at any time? I love listening to you guys. So for you people, you folks that don't know Robert Rapier, he's a senior energy contributor for Forbes, and I will be having him on. Absolutely. Um, Me and Robert are pretty good friends, and he will absolutely be on this show in the near future. I may text him today and say, "Come on over. Let's talk." Was it the Cushing refinery that fell through? It hasn't fallen through yet, but it's definitely hit a big snag. But yes, it was the Cushing refinery. Um, Sean Garner, $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Sean. Thank you so much. Great question, by the way. Great question. Can you explain the oil price wars in 2008 and the oil market crash following the economic collapse? Gas went from 4.50 in September to $1.20 in January where I lived. Thank you. That's a great question, Sean. So the oil price wars were really indicative of they actually started a little bit before the Great Recession started. Everyone saw it coming. Everyone saw the Great Recession coming. They saw the housing market was about to collapse, and they started pumping as much oil as possible. And that's basically what happened, right? Um, it's not that unusual. People that work in energy sectors and energy industry and OPEC nations, they're not just oil and gas people. They're also very good at predicting economies of the future and where the economies are going because that drives their entire business globally, right? So if the United States is about to enter, or if the world is about to enter into a time of big economic downturn, they know about it before we do. They know about it before we do. And if you see production ramping up in different places around the world and you hear some talks like there may be some problems coming, if that coincides with big production increases, some really bad shit's about to happen because everyone's trying to cash in as many as their chips as they can before it all falls down because it's going to fall down anyway. So you might as well make every dollar you can before it happens. And that's basically what happened. You know, that's basically what happened. It was not like the crash of 2014, 15, and 16. It was not like that at all. That was more of a response by OPEC to the United States taking so much of their market share after they had doubled oil production in the United States. The United States hadn't really increased oil production that much when that crash happened. So that was more of an economic thing that was forecasted and everyone saw it coming and they just started dumping their product on the market. Thank you so much for the question, Sean. Where's the natural gas going out of? And I can't even say, is it Plaquemines? That's in Louisiana. Um, that's going to Europe. That's going to Europe. Dying Breed says the sad thing is the financial sector knew about the mortgage collapse was coming. A friend in the business called it a tsunami coming. A year later, it happened. Yeah, yeah, they knew it was coming. Of course, they knew it was coming. Um, that's what I said. They always know about it before we do. They see this stuff coming. That's their whole job is to see that stuff coming. But the folks whose job is to see that stuff coming, it's not in their best interest to tell us about it, because whether you're in the oil and gas business or the energy sector of some kind, or whether you're just an investor, knowing about these things when nobody else does is a great way to make a lot of money. So when they see these things coming, they keep their mouth shut so they can capitalize as much as possible on it. Handsome Harry says he pulled out of the market, 6 months before the crash. Handsome Harry saw it coming. Lori can remember when she was a child and gas was 49 cents. So she's the oldest person here, except for me, apparently. I don't remember gas being 49 cents, but I don't think I was looking at gas prices when I was a kid. You know what I mean? We were just always out of gas. I remember that. My parents were always talking about how we didn't have any gas when I was little.
Yes,
We
the
don't.
same here.
Yeah. Hey, are we going to, are we going to Uncle Craig's house? We don't have any gas. Like, okay. And when you're a kid, you don't know any better. Like, you don't know, like, oh, we don't have any gas. Like, you don't know that if you're being raised by two adults who can't afford $1 or two worth of gas to get to your uncle's house, that's a really bad thing. Like, you don't understand that when you're 5.
Right.
You're just like, oh, we don't have any gas. Because when you're dirt poor and you're 5, you don't really know you're dirt poor. You don't know what that means, right? You don't learn that till you start going to school.
Yes,
And
the other kids have all the better clothes and shoes.
yeah,
Yes.
and you're wearing clothes that your grandma stitched together, and these kids are walking in with all the brand name stuff they had back then.
Yes.
which would have been like, I don't know, Jordache, kangaroos. You guys remember kangaroos, the tennis shoes? Yeah, whatever clothes were popular back then. The shirts with the little alligator on them. Whatever. Tom Hutton remembers 19.9-cent gas. And he says, my mom would get 25 cents worth of gas. I swear, I think I remember that now. So, like, my mom would get gas, and I would go in and I would pay for the gas, and I would buy her a pack of cigarettes, and I would be like 7 years old. And I would have like two $1 bills, and I would go in and pay for the gas and a pack of cigarettes. Kangaroos. Yes, kangaroos had the zipper pocket. I loved kangaroos. I remember when I got my first pair of kangaroos, I thought I was the shit. I thought I was the shit. I thought I was going to be able to jump out of my house because I had these shoes on.
Well, Converse back in those days were the really cheap shoes, right? Now look at the price of Converse.
That's exactly right. There's quite a few things from our childhood that was like discount or cheap stuff that has become high-end stuff.
Yes.
When I was a kid, Columbia was the junkiest thing you could buy. Like if you had a Columbia shirt or whatever hat, like you got it for $1.99 at Walmart. And now it's much more high end. Thank you, Randy. Bye. I appreciate it. Lori is 61.
Someone says Converse were nice shoes. Well, when I got a pair of Converse, I cried, okay, because they were not nice. And that's because they were the poor kids' shoes. Like, I cried. Guess what I own today? Yeah. Yep. That's what I wear today.
So Converse was nice shoes in the 60s and 70s. And then they became trash in the 80s and 90s. And then they became popular again and more expensive after that. That was Converse was like up and down. When the Chuck Taylors first came out, probably when my parents were kids, that's what every kid had to have was the Chuck Taylors. And then once the Chuck Taylors lost their popularity, Converse kind of went into the tank. But hi, Andy. Welcome back. I remember waiting in line at gas stations on even weeks. I don't remember that, but it was, I mean, I was alive when it was happening. I just don't have memories of it. I know it happened. I've studied it quite a bit, but Snoop Dogg and Ice Cube made Converse popular again. I'll buy that. Jeff says Air Jordans. I bought a pair of Air Jordans with my first check from my first job that I ever had. And we got to the store, and my grandmother took me. I had gone and cashed this check. I don't remember how much the check was. It wasn't very much because it was 1980 something. Probably 1987, 1988. I don't know. We go to the store to buy me some Air Jordans, and I didn't have enough money. And my grandmother, who was retired and on Social Security, she didn't have any money, but she gave me the extra money I needed because I was just devastated. I had to have these Jordans. Spent my whole check plus some of my grandma's money on my Jordans. walk down memory lane. I think my Jordans were like 90 bucks, like 80 or 90 bucks. And that was in, I think, 1988. Chuck Taylor's, they moved manufacturing to China. Wow, I didn't know that. Thank you, Carter Lee. Watched you for years on TikTok. Thank you for that. What time is it? It is 2:57. Um, that's true, Ryan. I'm the same way. So Ryan says, as I've become more successful in life, I care less about brands. I'm the exact same way. Like, I buy like if I'm buying myself clothes, I buy the cheapest shit. I don't care. I'm not trying to impress anybody. I I don't care what I look like. I do not care. I dress like a bum half the time. And I don't care. But my wife will go buy me some clothes and they'll be really expensive. And I'm like, why did you spend all this money on this stupid clothes? Like, just fucking go to Walmart or Target. I don't. And her response always is, "You don't have any nice clothes. You look like a bum." And I'm like, "I understand that, and I'm fine with it." Have you talked about how we are energy independent? Yeah, we're very energy independent. Um, we're currently producing roughly 10 quadrillion BTUs of energy, more than we consume. You think about how big a quadrillion is. I don't think I ever used the word quadrillion until I started talking about energy and BTUs. Wayne is grunge from head to toe. I kind of am too, Wayne. Carla brings up the S&H green stamps. We collected those stamps like crazy. Of course, me and my mother both worked in my uncle's grocery store, so we had access to to a lot of to a lot of S&H stamps. Is quadrillion bigger than a gajillion? Um, I honestly don't know. I don't know if a gajillion is a real word that we measured things with, and I don't know if it is. I would think it would have to be because I know the words up to quadrillion. So yeah, it would have to be bigger if it's a thing. Dude, Yakety just bought Levi's for $10. Good job, Yakety. Does Canada need more refineries? Not really. So, I mean, they basically refine what they need and they don't refine what they export and they don't need to refine what they're exporting anyway, right? They don't need to refine what they're getting rid of. So, I don't, you know, you could make the argument they need one. The companies that exist in Canada are much better suited to answer that question than I am. But I've said maybe one in the past, but honestly, they're as well off. They're not in any worse shape than the United States when it comes to refining. I mean, if they refined that, they would need a buyer that would want the refined products, right? And they do just fine selling the crude. So I can't see a scenario where and they already upgrade They already upgrade that stuff to send crude. So the president said he will double electricity production to accommodate crypto and AI. No, he won't. That's not a thing. The president, he has no idea how much electricity we currently produce. It's an unbelievable amount. Unbelievable amount. To double that, you're probably talking, if you worked really hard, you might be able to do that in 25 years. Maybe. And unless you found a new source of energy that just greatly. Mr. G, the classic car hobby is the healthiest it has ever been. They have a strong lobby. Does oil and gas benefit from the passion Americans have with old cars? Um, I mean, it's not a huge driver. I've had classic cars for the last 30 years. I've always had at least one. There's never been a time where I didn't have at least one thing in the garage. Um, but it's really Americans' passion for just driving, everything. I know, my old 72 Scout. Um, if I run that thing around town for a day, I probably use as much gas as 10 other people. Is Donald Trump saying crazier shit now than he was the first time he was in office? Absolutely. He absolutely is. He's talking about taking over countries. He's talking about annexing Canada, Greenland, the Panama Canal. Who knows what would be next? He's going to go up there and plant an American flag on the North Pole. Say this is mine. Yeah, he's he's talking a lot crazier now. Energy independence, just for clarification, are we as independent as we think when most of our refineries are constructed, here we go again, to refine sour oil more than sweet oil we pump domestically? All of our refineries that can refine sour crude can also refine light sweet crude. We can refine all of our own crude oil that we want. That is a misperception that we can't. We refine 9 million barrels a day of our own oil every single day, and we could refine more. We absolutely could refine more. Artificial intelligence and other servers are taking all of the electricity capacity we add as soon as it comes on the grid, pretty much. Pretty much. A bill was introduced to put Donald Trump on Mount Rushmore. Okay. I Is there any room left? I've been to Mount Rushmore. I don't remember if there was any room left. Could you imagine what people would do to that face on Mount Rushmore? It would be, they would have to have like a whole security team there 24 hours a day to try to prevent people from doing stuff to his face. Why do we import oil when we have more oil than we use? We import oil because it's a lot cheaper and it drives down our gas prices. And it's a business. Importing and exporting is a business in itself that has its own drivers for profit. We don't import or export for the need of this country or the need of other countries. We import and export because someone's making a dollar on it. And that's how those decisions are made. It has how much oil we import or export has nothing to do with the needs of people. It has everything to do with how much money can someone make by importing stuff and exporting stuff. That's it. Like that's the whole explanation, you know. Because it's companies. It's not the United States, it's not the government, it's not the country, it's companies that are doing all of this. And they do everything for profit. They're not importing oil because, Jill needs to fill up her car or heat her house. They're importing oil to make money.
Not. That hurt.
As far as our Canadian oil and gas industry, should we be keeping a good savings account in case we get hit again? Anybody that works in the oil and gas industry anywhere should save a bunch of money. It's an up and down industry. It's boom or bust. There's not a ton of stability in the industry and global markets. And just ask the 9,000 people that are about to get shit canned at Chevron, who are losing their jobs during a period of record profits. We don't even need instability anymore. We don't even need everything to crash for everyone to lose their jobs. They just do it. They just do it to save a buck, send more money back to the investors. Thank you so much for the corn. Am I from Alaska? No, I just visited Alaska and bought this hat. I'm not from Alaska. I just visited. Companies are not philanthropic. That's true.
Reset your goal.
Okay. All right. So was it yesterday, I think, that they put TikTok back in the App Store? I woke up this morning with over 100 messages of people trying to get me to sell their stuff again, like I did back in November. I think a lot of people think that they think that since it's back in the App Store that it's not going away. It's going away, folks. I loved Alaska. I loved Alaska. And I visited Canada too when I visited Alaska, and I would have stayed. I would have stayed in Canada. I was in Victoria, and I could have just stayed there, rented me an apartment or something, because housing is crazy expensive in Victoria. Maybe he should go live on the North Pole and take all of his billions with him. do we have? Can you connect to Starlink or something at the North Pole? I don't know. The fact that I know housing was expensive in Victoria tells you that I was actually interested in possibly just staying there, because I was literally looking at how much it would cost us to move there. It's expensive. I was like, fuck that. I don't need to be here that bad. Why aren't you going to speak anymore?
You're going to make me speak.
Why?
Kersey said that I sound like Charlie from Charlie's Angels over the speaker.
Well, I mean, that hadn't occurred to me, but that's not a bad thing. Good Lord, Charlie's Angels. Now we're.
I sound like Charlie. She said I sound like Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie has a bit of a raspy voice, and I can hear like what they're saying, how you would probably sound through this microphone over here. You don't sound that way to me, but I could hear how you could sound that way, is what I'm saying.
I'm good with it anyway. I thought it was funny because I know it's going to come over the mic different.
I think it's a compliment. I do. I think it's a compliment.
Sounded like Charlie?
Jill can't accept a compliment.
Okay.
Is it true that refining sweet oil is less efficient for our refineries because they were originally constructed to refine sour, or is that another misrepresentation? The reason refining sweet oil is less efficient is due to the cost, right? So when you can buy Canadian oil for $60, you a much better profit margin is delivered than buying WTI at $73. It's not so much an efficiency thing as it's a profit thing. You have the stuff there to refine the cheaper product. You're going to refine it because that's where you make the most money. So if you are using the word efficiency in terms of money, which some people do, then yes, they would make less money if they refined WTI, but it's not because of the cost to refine, it's because of the cost of the materials. The WTI is more expensive than WCS. BCT. I've learned more from you in 2 months than 30 years in oil and gas in Canada. Thank you so much for that. That's a compliment. Do you feel Trump will turn off the taps from Alberta? No, I do not think that at all. Is the Shell PCM that you contributed to available online? It's available for Shell employees. If you know a Shell employee, it's available to them and they can get it. I'm sure that pressure control manual has been updated since I wrote it, because that was in 2019, and they update those and revise those quite often. That's a good question, Albert. Thank you for the question. You've mentioned living wages in some of your videos. Is paying everyone a living wage possible, in your opinion? Thank you. So I don't think paying everyone a living wage is possible, but I know trying to is better than paying them a guaranteed poverty wage. And so the reason it's not possible is because some people, some people can make 150 grand a year and it's not a living wage for them because they don't know how to do money. So I guess if we had could better define what a living wage would be, we could come up with something. But I don't think it's possible to pay everyone a living wage, but it's certainly possible to not intentionally keep people in poverty and allow the government to intentionally keep those policies in place that keep people in poverty. But I'm talking about the minimum wage. Deborah Mason is starting to feel like a conspiracy theorist. That's not good. That's not good, Deborah. Will MBS increase oil production to help Putin strike a bargain with Trump? I think the only way MBS increases oil production is if sanctions are placed on Iran. And I think the only way they do it is very slowly. Keep in mind, they just had a meeting. Was it last week? OPEC had their meeting and OPEC Plus had their meeting the next day. And both of those groups said, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. So that doesn't mean they're not doing that, though, because they've said that before. I think it's going to be much harder to get them to do that this time. A living wage is not possible with greed at the core of a society. Profound. Do you feel there is an appreciable difference between privately held oil companies like Hillcorp and publicly traded companies like BP and Conoco? Um, an appreciable difference. So typically, your publicly held companies will try to do more for the public. They will have big departments where they donate money and spread money around all over the place. You don't see that as much privately held companies. Companies that are publicly traded tend to do a lot more things to keep their name circulating in the media. And they try to do positive things to keep their name circulating in the media because that helps drive shareholder confidence. It helps drive people to buy those stocks. Um, I'd say that's the main difference that I have seen between those two types of companies. As far as operationally speaking, about the same, you know. I'm worried about Elon knowing so much about the vote counting computers. Why do you Warren Buffett is investing in Oxy? What do I think? Warren Buffett's been pouring money into Occidental since good lord for a long time. And years ago, I think it was 7 years ago, Occidental was in a lot of trouble. They needed a lot of cash. And they cut a deal with Warren Buffett. He bought a ton of Occidental shares at a huge discount, and he owns a big piece of that company now. So he's going to make a fortune on it. He's going to make a fortune on it. Is there any government agency that Doge would have access to that could be dangerous to the petroleum sector? The Department of Energy, the Bureau of Land Management, the Interior Department. The BLM actually falls under the Interior Department umbrella. Um, yeah, I don't know if it would be dangerous for the petroleum sector, but he would have access to that. What would you guess about Chevron total employment now that they have laid off 9,000 people? The layoffs are going to go on throughout the year. When they get done, I believe they'll have globally around 35,000 employees, maybe 34,000 employees globally. Um, Yet to see how many of those jobs are in the United States, but a lot of them are going to be in the United States, particularly the San Ramon refinery and at their headquarters in Houston. Do you see a negative impact with OSHA being targeted? Yes, specifically with OSHA. Yes. Do you think Elon is downloading data for his own AI algorithm in the future? He might be. I don't honestly. I don't know. In a video recently, you mentioned losing a refinery. What causes refineries to close? They stop making money. And so, one of the reasons refineries have been closing as of late, and as of late, I mean the last 10 years, is because we have a very old refining fleet, if you will, in the United States. A lot of our refineries are very, very old, some of them over 100 years old, still operating. Those refineries are extremely expensive to maintain, the upkeep of them, and to just keep them running. So their profit margins are much tighter. Their operating cost and their not their fixed costs so much, but their cost to keep that pile of shit running are so high that they just give up and close it. That's basically what happened with Lyondell in Houston. That's an old ass refinery. I don't know how they kept it open as long as they did. Um, but that's basically why. Scott from Peoria is here. Thank you, Scott. Was the upkeep of refineries part of Biden's infrastructure plan? No. Chevron has destroyed the Central Valley in California. Bakersfield is the most depressed place in the United States. Bakersfield that's yeah. Bake be, Being in Bakersfield is like being west of Amarillo, Texas. If you've ever been west or east of Amarillo, that's Bakersfield. It's depressing. Maybe one upside of Trump being the POTUS is that in theory, it will be easier for oil companies to get building permits for new refineries. So the permits weren't ever the huge thing. They may speed up the permitting process for that time, but the huge thing has always been the lawsuits. That's always been the biggest thing. You could streamline the permitting process and make it, I don't know, 6 months faster. But it's the lawsuits that keep you in court for years that really not only make it take much longer, but also prevents people with money from considering those projects to begin with. It's really the lawsuits. Nick says west of Amarillo is very depressing. Yes, it is. It is bad. It's very depressing. I was in the oil field often as a safety inspector. It was like working around The Walking Dead. Well, I'm not quite sure you mean they were tired or they like is it possible for the US to sustain itself in the oil and agriculture sectors? Sounds like oil, yes, but what are your thoughts? Definitely with oil. The agriculture sector, I don't know. You would have to ask Will Westmoreland that question. He's on YouTube, Back 40. He's on TikTok, Will Westmoreland. People have begun calling him the Mr. Global of agriculture. Uh, that would be a great question for him. The population in Amarillo, Texas stayed the same for 100 years. That was because every time a girl got pregnant, a man left town. Was that a was that a Doyle Brunson quote? Or was that an Amarillo Slim quote? Or is Doyle Brunson Amarillo Slim? So without building new refineries, we can sustain ourselves with no imports. We could. We actually could. Um, and another reason we're not building new refineries, besides everything else, is because the return on investment for a new refinery is a very long time. And when you look out 20 years, the demand for refined fuels in the United States, particularly gasoline, is likely to have plateaued. So it's not going, it's going to stop growing at some point, and people don't want to invest in something that's not, growing. I have not seen the new proposed budget in Congress. I watched the news girl do a piece on it, but she didn't get into a lot of details. She just said big cuts, basically, to a lot of things, but she wasn't specific. So I don't really know much about it. Where is the physical strategic petroleum reserves? Along the Gulf Coast. Along the Gulf Coast, oil is delivered to pipelines. Big salt caverns. Pecos does have good cantaloupes. That is a thing. How do you feel about the $4 billion increase in the debt ceiling? It's 4 trillion. It's 4 trillion. It's not 4 billion. The increase in the debt ceiling that the president wants. My question is, if the budget's going to be balanced this year, because that's what they're telling us, why do we need to add 4 trillion to the debt ceiling if it's going to be balanced? Yeah, 4 billion wouldn't last. Yeah, like smart. I don't know how many minutes 4 billion would last, honestly. But it is definitely a matter of minutes, not hours. Um, is there a worry about hurricanes flooding out the SPR? Is that even possible? Not really. Um, I I can't honestly. Even if even if the whole place was underwater, it wouldn't flood out. Beth, we do refine sweet crude. Absolutely. We do. A lot of volcanoes are popping off. I haven't heard that. Can you explain the RG LNG project in South Texas? Not in great detail. I would have to read up on it. There's currently 12 or 14 LNG projects that are either ongoing or being permitted or about to start in the United States. And then there's much more that are planned that I'm not including in that. But there's a ton of them. Thank you, Dying Breed. I just learned from Hawk there are 800 military bases around the world. I'd have to take your word for it. I believe that sounds close. How long after peak oil production will we realize that it was the peak? We will hit peak oil demand before we hit peak oil production. When we talk about peak oil, we talk about in terms of demand, not production, because we feel like we could meet the demand even if it continued to rise. So, um, and it would take us probably 3 to 5 years to realize it because there's been times where oil demand has risen and then fallen and then risen and then fallen. And so it takes some time to really see that kind of flesh itself out as as peak oil demand.
So Barrister asked, could they add sugar
No.
to sour crude to make it sweet crude?
No, that's not a thing.
I knowing he's gonna say that, that's why I asked it.
People like Barrister is why we have a show called Not a Thing. People like Barrister. I can always rely on Barrister
Yes.
to ask a question someone much less smarter than him would ask. He has this savvy ability to get in the mind of those that are inferior to him. Not sure how old you are, but have you ever met Red Adair? No, I never met Red Adair, but I did work with Bobby Joe Cudd, and I worked with him, and I knew him very well. Great guy, but I never got the chance to meet Red Adair. What's the craziest thing Donald has said so far? It's got to be annexing Canada. It's got to be. It's got to be. You know, Greenland is actually something that could probably be pulled off. Canada, no, that's not a thing. Wouldn't the people of Canada have to agree to that in the first place? Because if they don't, then you're an aggressor, right? According to Seymour Hersh, Substack, I'm familiar. The USA is responsible for blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline. Are we selling LNG to Northern Europe cheaper to make amends? No, we're not. No, we're not. They're paying full price for that shit. Barrister Ryan Dubay says you have to filter sour crude through a pound cake to make it sweet, obviously. Wouldn't Denmark have to agree about Greenland, to which they are a no? I mean, is Ukraine agreeing to what Russia's doing? I mean, if we're being honest about it, just looking at the situation, I would say no, they don't have to agree. How does LNG work? How much compression do you get from gas form into liquid? So, as natural gas is cooled, um, once you get it all down into a liquid, it's 1/600th of the size, right? You can't change the mass, but you can change the density, right? So it's 1/600th. So what that means is one LNG tanker has 600 times the volume of natural gas as it has liquid on board. Okay. And so what that means, and I'm not trying to be condescending, but if that LNG was in a gaseous state, it would take 600 of those tankers, right, to deliver the same amount of gas if it was in a gaseous state. So it's 1/600th, 1/600th. When we empty the earth of oil, will all the drills sound like it does when you hit the bottom of a milkshake? No, Beth. No, that's not a thing. Support for American annexation is 6% in Greenland. So basically, they've gotten about 6 people to agree to it. Uh, is LNG propane? No. Will Trump use federal layoffs to leverage to lower interest rates? I hadn't thought about that, but I mean, he might be trying that, but I can't imagine why that would work. Um, 6% of 250 responding. Oh, so that's 15 people. Okay. 6% of 250, I think, is 15. Just doing head math. Making maple syrup is just as scientific as refining crude. It could be. I don't know anything about making maple syrup, but it definitely could be. that that was quick head math. Yeah. 6% of 250. How do you do that in your head? Okay, 6% of 100 is 6. So 6% of 200 is 12. Half with 50 is 3. So there you get 15 is 6% of 250. That's how you do that in your head. Or that's how I did it anyway. I don't know if it's right, but that's how I did it. Yeah, kind of like calculating a 20% tip. Exactly. Will Exxon buy Chevron? I don't think so. Um, man, that would be the biggest oil and gas deal in history by far. Um, Now, under this administration, it is possible that they could actually get that through the Federal Trade Commission. I mean, it's a possibility under this administration, but I don't know if the math would work for Exxon. But that would be a massive, and it would not be a good thing to have one company of that size in the industry. That would not be a good thing at all. What company owns the most oil assets in the United States? Assets themselves, it's either Exxon or Chevron, because Chevron owns massive assets in the United States, even though Exxon's bigger globally. Um, it's going to be one of those two. I'm not sure which one. It's most likely Exxon, but Chevron does have a lot of stuff in the United States. Because you're talking total assets. I think Chevron actually has more refineries in the US than Exxon. Um, I'd have to look that up. I'd have to look that up. Marathon has the most capacity, but that's mostly just in the midstream space. When you talk about, um, upstream, midstream, and downstream, Marathon does have the most capacity in the midstream space, but that wouldn't give them necessarily the most assets. I don't think Marathon's even close to Exxon or Chevron. What do you think, Jill? Is it Exxon or Chevron?
I don't know. Chevron.
I don't know, man.
Did I mute someone? No, it's not in the
Probably.
if I did it,
You
somebody
probably
else will.
muted someone. You probably muted, and you probably blocked someone.
I was trying to scroll back because I'm on both of them, right? And I think I muted someone, but it isn't the whole live, so they'll be all right.
Uh-oh. Johnny's talking about the 72-ounce steak. That's in Amarillo, Texas. Thank you for the gifts, by the way. Thank you so much. Listen, if you're ever in Amarillo, Texas, and you feel like you're being sucked into that restaurant where they have that 72-ounce steak, don't go. It's terrible. The food is terrible. Don't go. Okay? There's a big dude out front, and there's a big bull on a trailer. Don't go in there. It's a complete shithole. Okay? And the food is terrible. Barrister agrees. The motion has been seconded. We're not going. My cousin ate that 72-ounce steak 3 times. Wow. They barred him from ever coming back. Man, your cousin must be, man, what is it, like 72 ounce? It's like 4.5 pounds. But you got to eat all the stuff that comes with it. Like, they got like a 5-pound baked potato that comes with it and some other stuff. Best barbecue in Texas? Go to Kansas City. I'm not a big fan of barbecue. I'm not. Like, I would rather just have a steak. Not a big fan of barbecue.
Agree.
Not a fan of barbecue sauce. Not a fan of barbecue potato chips. I can't believe that's even a thing. People eat that shit.
Yes, I eat that shit.
Everyone thinks they have the best barbecue. I think all their barbecue sucks. Yeah. And brisket. What is the deal with brisket? Well, why don't you just take off your leather belt and stick it in your fucking mouth? Like, why do people eat brisket? Why is that a thing? It's like the worst thing ever. Eating brisket, I mean, just cook a roast in your crock pot every night if you've given up on life to where you don't care what you put in your mouth.
Wait a minute now. The roast is good, okay? If you cook it right.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. It is.
Hey, why do we make soup or stew when it's cold outside? Why do we do that?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking anybody that will answer, because listen, it's not 10 degrees in my house. That's outside. Like, it's still the same temperature in my house. So I don't need something to warm me up. I have an entire house for that.
No, because when it's cold outside, no matter how warm your house is, you cold to your bones, and that soup will warm you right up.
Whatever.
See, there are some things we just don't agree on. Barrister, do your research.
Would we not agree? Would we not agree that having to run to the bathroom in a hurry is statistically, the odds of that occurring is statistically much higher with stew than it is steak? And if so, why would you still eat the stew?
I'm not answering that. I don't eat stew, right? I eat soup, but I don't eat stew.
No, stew is not delicious. That's not a thing. If stew was delicious, we'd eat it all the time. Ketchup, potato chips. Stew is delicious. You need a better recipe. I'm from the South and Midwest. I've eaten all the best stew there is. I've never eaten any that I thought, man, that's delicious. Like, that's not a thing that's ever happened.
I got asked, do I know what Pittsburgh steak is? Is that the steak with the onions and ketchup mixed together that takes 3 hours to chew? Yes, I absolutely know what that is.
What is it, like a sirloin? Why does it take 3 hours to chew it? Is it like eating a boot?
Yes, it absolutely is. And it's cooked in ketchup.
Oh, it's cooked in ketchup.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Oh my God.
You cook it with ketchup. That's what I think of it.
That is true. I do love chicken and dumplings, but chicken and dumplings is not stew. It's chicken and dumplings. And when I eat chicken and dumplings, I just eat the chicken and the dumplings. Like I filter it out. Beth says it's a stew. Kersey says it's stew adjacent. Yeah. No, I'm not a big fan of chili. I like chili on things, but I don't like eating chili by itself. What do I eat? I'm not that picky. Not liking stew doesn't make me picky. And if we have stew, I'll eat it. But I don't understand why we're having stew when it's cold, when it's 70 degrees in the house. We're not eating out in the yard, we're eating in the house, right? It's like when we turn our thermostats up when it's colder outside. Why are you turning your thermostat up? If it's 70 degrees, then it's 70 degrees in the summer or 70 degrees in the winter. One is on heat, one is on cool, but you don't adjust the thermostat because it's colder outside. You're not heating the outside, right? I mean, It's weird things that we do. Can we talk about natural gas? Absolutely. Natural gas is up today. What was it? 373 or something last time I looked. Why do I have a sweatshirt on? Because it's nicer than the shirt. It's not about keeping me warm. Is WTI considered light or heavy? WTI is light sweet crude. Can I get Bob on a live? I would love to get Bob on a live. Is LNG better for the climate? That depends on how you think about the climate. So, LNG has very little carbon emissions, which stay in the atmosphere for hundreds of years, but it's methane. And so, methane in the atmosphere actually has more of a warming effect than carbon dioxide, but it doesn't stay in the atmosphere near as long, right? So, it dissipates much faster. So with LNG, with natural gas, you can see short term warming more prevalent, long term, not as bad. With carbon dioxide, it takes much more to warm the planet, but once it begins, it's much harder to reverse because the carbon dioxide stays in the atmosphere for shit. I think it's like 200 and something years or something. And so that's the difference, right? It's kind of a trade off. What is your thought on the Elliott Group letter to Phillips 66? I haven't read about that. Have they made an offer on the refinery in Los Angeles? China, number one CO2 polluter by far. That is absolutely true. Wow, that thing just zoomed in on me. Wonder why it did that.
Maybe it wanted a close up.
Maybe it did. So the steak, that I can't change that, and it's fuck on my head. The steak I had as a kid was very hard. I think it was like chuck steak or something. I'm not sure what it was, but
It was round steak.
huh?
It was round steak.
It was
and that's what they cooked the ketchup with, and onion and round steak. That's what we ate as kids.
Oh, I missed a question here.
Go back to it.
If there is such a surplus of LNG, why are rates up in the Midwest? Because we don't have a surplus anymore. We no longer have a surplus of natural gas in the United States. We are squarely in the 5-year average. We spent the last 18 months or so with a surplus. We had record natural gas production in the US. We added more LNG export terminals. We laid down drilling rigs because natural gas prices fell to about $1.50. Production declined a little bit. LNG exports increased. And then this winter has actually turned out to be much colder than normal. And so we have burned through our surplus. And that's about how long it takes. You just need one really cold winter. And if this cold winter is followed by a very hot summer, because we use natural gas to generate electricity in the summertime. And even though the summertime is the season to pile up more natural gas in inventory for wintertime, if we don't pile up enough of it during the summer and the amount we pile up is lower than what we normally do, then those prices will continue to rise. And everything is right now, from production, consumption, exports, the current weather patterns we're in, is all putting upward pressure on natural gas prices at the moment. We are supposed to produce around 3 billion cubic feet by next year. That must be a big company. That must be a bigger company. 3 billion's pretty significant amount of natural gas. Yeah, I think I know who it is. You don't have to say. And I won't say. I remember drilling in Norman 20 years ago. Gas was $12 to $14. Yeah, I remember that too. I remember that $12 to $14 gas. Well, we had $9 and $10 gas in 2022. I don't think we're going to get back to that, but we do see a pretty long run of healthy gas prices. I don't see them getting crazy expensive, but they're, of course, when they're at $1.50 and they're at historic lows, it seems expensive when it's $3.30, but $3.30 is about where you want it. It's $3.30 is kind of the sweet spot where it's not too expensive for customers and the companies can still make money on it. Why is diesel and home heating oil more expensive on average? Some people have probably heard me say this. Diesel runs the economy, okay? Diesel runs the economy. Gas runs cars. Diesel runs the economy. Diesel has a huge industrial use. It's not just for transportation. And diesel runs the economy. As your economy grows, the demand on diesel is just forever growing, right? And that's why it's just over the years become more and more and more expensive because the demand for it. Huge industrial demand. It's much more than just transportation. Like gasoline is mostly 99% transportation. Diesel is transportation and industrial use, and home heating. Yep. Can you use light sweet crude to make diesel? Absolutely. A barrel of light sweet crude will probably make 10 to 12 gallons of diesel, depending on how they refine it. But a barrel of light sweet crude to make 10 to 12 gallons of diesel. Will countries start putting tariffs on our gas exports? They'll either do that or they'll just stop taking it altogether. The last time Donald Trump put tariffs on China, they stopped buying our LNG completely. Our LNG exports to China went to zero. Donald Trump put tariffs on China, so they just completely quit buying our LNG. They didn't need it. They could buy it. There's a lot of places they can buy it, right? And so putting tariffs on a country for a product when they can purchase your product at 10 other places is really stupid, because all they got to do is go buy it somewhere else. All they got to do is go buy it somewhere else, right? So, and they'll probably do that again. And we're waiting to see if Trump's tariffs on China are going to have an impact on the LNG industry in the United States and natural gas prices as a whole. And waiting to see if there's other customers out there willing to take that LNG. Yes, you heard that right, Beth. Hello, Aloysius. Nikolai says, that's what fungible means. Fungible. Fungible or fungible? Fungible. Depends on where you're at. I don't know how to get this thing from zooming on my face like this, but it's driving me fucking batty. When is the process change for a refinery between winter change over? I believe it's May the 1st. By May the 1st, is it May the 1st? I think it's May the 1st. By May the 1st, you have to have summer blend in every station in America. I think it's May the 1st. I would have thought it'd be more than 10 gallons. Well, we make a lot of other stuff with that barrel too, Beth, like, 20, 21 gallons of gas, a few gallons of jet fuel. And then the rest is basically feedstock for petrochemicals, or they could make a ton of stuff out of the leftovers. It's just what they decide to do with it. But I gotta change my shit. How do I change that, Jill? I think I hit this. Then I think I hit this. No, I don't hit that.
You got to hit the other grid. You're on one grid. You got to hit the other one that says grid. Shit, I can't remember what it's called. Going to change your grids. If you keep it like this, people are going to request. I'm just letting you know.
I'm trying to do that. She tells me to go in and change my grid like I know what that means.
You did know what it means. You changed it the first time.
I just kept hitting buttons until I hit the right one. How much diesel can heavy crude produce? Typically, on any given product, it's 1 to 2 gallons less with heavy versus light. In addition to that, a 42-gallon barrel of oil produces about 44 and a half or so gallons of refined product. It's called expansion or swell. And that is because when you change the density or specific gravity of a fluid, you can actually change the volume. So a 42-gallon barrel will produce 44 to 44 and a half gallons of products. Are there fake Mr. Globals out there? Yes, there's a bunch. There's a bunch. At least 100. I don't know. Probably 100 more, 150. I don't know. How'd you get started in the oil and gas industry? I started in drilling. In 1992, I went to work for Anadarko Drilling. In New York, they charge you for natural gas use plus a delivery charge that is almost as much as you use. They do that, in Oklahoma, they charge you um, for the gas, but then they also charge you like $50 a month just to be hooked up to the gas, just to be, just to have access to it, right? When is gas going to be $1.50 a gallon, like Trump said? It's not, or I hope it's not. Can't they use cracking to combine products to produce more diesel or more gas? Absolutely. Fractional distillation gives them a lot more mobility in what they produce with their throughputs at any given time, or their inputs, not their throughputs. But yeah, is the Marcellus best days behind us? Casing pressures are down, and they're doing a lot of swabbing. I haven't read any studies on the life of the Marcellus recently. To see what EURs are doing across the basin. But now that you've asked me that question, I'm gonna have to look at that and see if there's anything that's been published that's out. Um, because they typically won't publish those or put them out until they see it happening across the entire basin, right? And not in just one particular area of the basin. Why do natural gas companies seem to suck at maintaining their gas lines? Boston has huge issues with leaking lines. That's a good question. I don't know why they suck. What do you do in the gas industry these days? I'm a principal partner in an upstream oil and gas company. Maybe they bought a bunch of cheap Chinese pipe. I don't know. That is a thing. You like YouTube better than TikTok for lives? I think I do too. If I can get past the issues we have getting started. Once we get started, we're fine. Yeah, it's not easy to repair pipelines. Not easy at all. Thank you. Is it Ryan? Thank you, Julie Boss. You never mentioned taxes at the pump and the role they play. I talk about taxes quite a bit, actually, especially in the states where it's really expensive. Um, and for the folks that think we should have $1.50 gas, understand at a $1.50 gas in most states, your tax rate. Most states charge a flat tax rate. It's not a percentage. It's just so many cents per gallon, no matter how much the gallon is. Some states have more progressive taxes where they're a percentage or whatever. Most states just charge a flat rate. When gas gets that cheap, your tax rate um, between state, local, and federal taxes can easily be well over 50% tax rate on a cheap gallon of gas. And what that means is everyone else besides the tax collector is losing their ass. As a Canadian, you guys should have 50-cent gas. Just keep buying more from us. Is Trump going to do something weird to get gas prices low for a few months so he finally gets a win? Uh, Probably. I mean, he's gonna try to do something weird. So no tax on gas could make it $2. It depends on where you live. If there was no tax on gas where I live, it would make it about, well, at least at where I buy gas, it would make it about 2.30. Um, but it just depends on where you live and how much taxes impact your gas prices where you live. As you know, well, if it's in Boston, the gas lines are probably 100 freaking years old. There's a lot of really old stuff up there. What is your prediction for the economy for the next year? I'm not an economist, but I'm going to say it depends. Depends on what crazy shit we see next. It depends on what crazy shit we see next. What do you think will happen with carbon sequestration programs under Trump? I don't know if that's something that if that is something that would be cut. It sounds like they're cutting everything. So if those are cut, then it would not be good for CCS, which is carbon capture. Carbon capture is currently pretty much fully dependent on the government to survive. And it in its current state, it is I can't see it surviving without the government right now. It's you know, it just can't. It's far too early in the game for it to be able to stand on its own. Why do so many people push back on climate change? Because like everything, it's politicized, and I personally I think both sides of the argument when it comes to climate change are too far away from reality. A lot of people on the right deny it or, whatever. A lot of people on the left think we're going to die in 2 years or something. It's the extremes from each side. Um, People prefer a comfortable lie over an uncomfortable truth. I would agree with that completely. I think a lot of things that drive people's opinion about climate change is based on how averse they are personally to change because everybody wants things to happen, but they don't want that to have to change anything they do themselves. You know what I mean? Like they're not willing to do anything, to go through any type of change themselves for the greater good, even if they believe change needs to happen. And people are very, very averse to change. Like they can't deal with it. It's yeah. And I get it, we're all on a spectrum of, you know, our ability to adjust to change, but some people are much worse than others. What's wrong with killing whales? Well, that depends. That depends on your opinion of whales, I guess. We do we not want to kill whales because they're beautiful or like, we don't have any problem killing all the things we don't have a problem killing, right? Like I'm not for killing whales. I'm trying to get inside your mind. Is a whale any different than a cow? Like, you would never complain about killing a cow because it would give you something to eat, right? If we depended on whales for food, would you care about killing whales? Why would you want to kill whales? I don't want to kill whales. I'm trying to get inside the mind of someone that would ask about killing whales and figure out exactly, I find it fascinating that we largely pick and choose what we destroy based on our perception of their beauty, right? Puppy dogs are cute. We can't kill puppy dogs. Chickens are ugly. Let's kill all the chickens and eat them, right? Like, it's
No,
we're
chickens are cute.
we're very vain in our decision making about what we end, what we choose to end for our own personal use, right? We kill the ugly things and eat it, and we save the pretty things.
Chickens are cute.
I mean, what if we had more whales than we knew what to do with? Would we care about the whales? Like, what if we had just a number of whales? Like, what if we could never run out of whales? Would people care about killing them then? Jill thinks chickens are cute. I mean, when you're eating your chicken sandwich, are you thinking about that cute chicken?
I
Or
do not, because then I wouldn't eat the chicken sandwich.
okay, so you have to forget about the cuteness of the chicken to eat it then. You're having to kind of trick yourself.
If I thought of your chickens while eating a chicken sandwich, I would never eat a chicken sandwich again.
I could look at the cutest chicken ever while eating a chicken sandwich and not think anything about it. Like, it wouldn't occur to me to stop eating my chicken sandwich just because I was looking at a cute chicken. I would just say, this is a different chicken. This chicken was stupid. That chicken's cool.
But I don't think it would work.
So we take the cute things and the pretty things and we keep them as pets, sort of like little slaves, right? We keep them as pets for our personal entertainment, like little slaves. And then we kill the ugly things and eat them. And then the things that we can't control, that we can't keep as pets, that are cute, we try to save, right? Like, there's a whole method to this madness.
So, in all reality, to just kill an animal for no reason is wrong, right? So, since whales are not food, why would you do that? That's the thing. That's what people see in that.
I understand that.
It's not for food.
I totally understand that. My argument is that if offshore wind power was killing whales and we were out there collecting them as they died and we used them for food, people would not be outraged by the killing of the whales. Is that what you're saying?
I suppose if it was edible, yeah. Because that's like deer hunting, right? So people go hunting for the food. They go hunting for the food. If they did it just to have it, just to have the trophy only, then it would be wrong. And that's also why if you find, a buck, you hit a buck, you can't keep them horns, right?
Go get a permit for it.
Right.
Eat it and keep the horns.
You have to, right, exactly.
Or the antlers, as it were.
Con, you said, I don't think so, hun. I don't think you're talking to me because nobody calls me hun.
You know, they say horse is good, but I'll take their word for it. It's not that good. I've had horse. It's not that good. That poses another question. If horse was better, would we just raise and eat horses instead of cows? I say no because they're too quick and nimble. They can jump fences. Cows can't. So we probably wouldn't. But somebody would set up a high fenced ranch and raise horses to feed people if they tasted better. Somebody would do that.
Someone said, why can't you keep the antlers? Because I called them horns. Anyway, antlers, horns, what's the difference? Why can't you keep them? Because the state doesn't allow you. Because you didn't go hunting for that animal with a license.
So username, y'all just ain't right, which is perfectly fitting for this conversation, says we wouldn't have bred horses to be so fast and tall if they were yummy. That's true. We would have bred them to be slow and fat so we could catch them and eat them.
Yes. Yes. See? Just my point was that you shouldn't be out there just killing animals for no reason.
So Mary asked if is wind truly hurting whales? So the reason this whole subject became a subject is because some environmental groups are adamantly opposed to offshore wind. And I actually read a study about this and learned something I didn't know, and that is that whales are extremely sensitive to sound. So much so that it'll drive them batshit crazy, and they will do things that will cause their demise. Right. So I am certainly not knowledgeable enough about it to speak on it with any authority for sure. But I have read it. I did read a study about the harmful effects to whales. Uh, Now, with that being said, what I don't know was who funded the study. Anytime you read a study, it's best to find out who funded the study because I can find a study that will say about anything the person that funded it wants it to say. So it could be a completely legitimate study. It could not be. I don't know because I don't know who funded the study, right? Sarcastic sister says, follow the money. Exactly. Follow the money. We have studies that say a lot of things. A lot of things. We have studies that say climate change isn't real. Do deer whistles on cars work to prevent strikes? I don't know. And that is a question I've asked before myself. There's some people around here that have them. There's a lot of deer where I live. People hit a lot of deer with their vehicles, and so some people have those things. I don't know if they work or not. I really don't. They're supposed to make a very high pitched sound that detracts the deer or whatever, but I don't know how effective they are. Yes, Beth. There you can purchase a couple of these little things you mount on your car, and it's supposed to make a high pitched sound as the air travels through them. And but like I said, I don't know if they work. Lori says the ones they had 30 years ago didn't work until you hit about 40, 41, 41 miles an hour. Okay. Arnett Outdoors says they did a study down south on deer hearing, and deer hear the same frequencies that we do. If you can't hear it, they can't either. So if that is the case, then those whistles would not work, to my knowledge. Ask you how you know? Well, I know how you know because you hit a deer. or or you had a near miss. Which poses another question. Why do they call it a near miss? Shouldn't that be a near hit? Why is it a near miss? Like you missed it, right? A near miss is when you missed it. So why is it near? Like, isn't it? You almost hit it. So it should be a near hit, not a near miss. Smarty Pants hasn't hit a deer for 15 years. Plenty of near misses. Sean says a collision is a near miss. I agree. And also, it's been about 25 years since I hit a deer. And I'm probably going to regret saying that. It's been about 25 years since I hit a deer. Um, and when I hit a deer, it did a lot of damage because um, I hit his head with my headlight, and his body came around and caved in the whole side of my pickup. So, like my fender, door, and everything was just completely caved in. Mary says they usually hit me. That happens a lot. A lot of times they just run into the side of your vehicle.
That is what happened to my vehicle. It ran into the side of it, but it didn't really do any damage, luckily.
Deer aren't incredibly smart. I don't know if people are aware, but they're not. Is that one of the reasons we don't mind killing them and eating them? It's because they're not very smart.
No, because you can eat them. I said this. They're edible.
Well, you can eat a dog too, but you can get a dog to roll over. You can't get a deer to roll over. Like, so,
That's not food.
like someone could say, don't eat that. Like, you can tell it to roll over and fetch, but you can't get a deer to roll over and fetch.
No, you don't.
You see what I'm saying?
Dogs are not edible.
I hit an antelope in Wyoming, jumped and landed on the hood, stopped, looked, and pranced away. That reminds me of that movie with Farley and Spade when the deer was in the back seat. Was that Tommy Boy? I'm just trying to narrow down and come to some conclusions on why we choose to eat the things we eat. You ever had cat, Jill? You ever had cat?
No, and I wouldn't.
Well, a lot of people eat cat. We don't, but people do, right?
I don't know where you're going with this, but
I'm just, I've never had cat. What brand mic am I using? I have no idea. Is it a good mic? Is it a bad mic? Do I need to adjust it? Because I can't hear it.
Someone asked if we like Chinese. I do not.
The people or the food?
The food, I would assume.
No,
I mean, I don't like.
I know you're
Chinese
talking about food. I'm talking about the person that asked you the question. You have to know who's asking you the
I hope
question.
it's food. I really do.
The USS Harry S. Truman just collided with another ship, so I guess their deer whistle wasn't working. Was the other ship the USS Rudolph? Bad joke. I know. Bad joke. Cats and dogs were bred for hunting and pest control. That mic looks like a Logitech Yeti. It could be. I bought it at Walmart. Is that what they carry at Walmart? Do we breed things anymore to do things, or is that a thing of the past? Beth says, I don't think deer can swim. Beth, deer can absolutely swim. I've seen them do it many times. Deer can swim like you wouldn't believe.
I've seen deer swim, yes.
If you go to Washita Lake, which is in south central Arkansas, it's a big, beautiful, crystal clear lake. It's one of the clearest lakes in the country, and it's massive. It's a very big lake, and it's got hundreds of islands within the lake. Little bitty islands, like just a few acres, right? Um, there's deer on all of those islands. They swim out to them and eat and hang out. Whatever deer do, I don't know. Deer do, but yeah, AC right here says they swim from island to island where I live. And that water they're swimming in on that particular lake is hundreds and hundreds of feet deep. So they can swim. The manual for my car recommends top tier gas. I think honestly at this point, just a ton of new vehicles are recommending top tier gas. The reason they do that is because they think it will save them money potentially on warranty work in the future. It's not that your car requires top tier gas or requires premium gas, or it's not that it requires it, it's that the manufacturer is like, you know what, if we sell 1 million cars a year, and that's not the right number, but we'll just use that number, and they do the math. What percentage of people will use top tier gas? What's the likelihood of us saving money on warranty work over the life of a car? That's why they say that. That car will run on any gasoline you put in it, and 99.99% of the time be perfectly fine. I've always bought the cheapest gas I could find. I've never bought anything special. I saw a video today. Someone in the chat on TikTok mentioned the video of the guy getting swallowed by the humpback whale. I saw that and it blew my mind. If you didn't see it, the guy gets eaten by a humpback whale. Like it just comes up out of the ocean and just like swallows the dude, and then it spits his ass out. Did you see that, Jill?
I didn't.
Yeah. So these guys are like out in the middle of the ocean on kayaks, and in the background you can see how far they are from land, and they are a long ways away from land. And this huge humpback whale comes up out and just swallows this dude on his kayak. And the guy filming is completely calm. Like he just keeps filming like it didn't happen. And I think they were speaking another language. It's kind of hard to hear all the sound, but he said something like, "Hey, bro," or I don't know what he said. Anyway, the whale swallows the dude and then spits him out, and he pops back up and like bobs back on the surface. Like what the fuck? Um, I was actually going to make a video about it. It's a fascinating video. Sean Garner, thank you so much for the $5 super chat, my friend. You kept me away from the gym long enough. Thanks for all the oil and gas talk as well as the nonsense. Have a great weekend, Global and Jill. Thank you so much, Sean. Get to that gym.
Thank you, Sean.
Go work out your frustrations. Jared says, I think it was the guy's son the guy's son was swallowed by the whale. That's kind of a crazy video. So that poses the question: if more whales swallowed people, would that change how we feel about whales and unaliving whales with offshore wind? That that whale might be giving whales a bad rap. If whales eat more people, we might get more offshore wind. That's true, Christian. I can no longer say that being swallowed by a whale is not a thing. Um, Although I think we need to clearly define what the word swallowed means, because, it's similar to conception, right? Is just putting something in your mouth swallowing it, or does it actually have to go beyond a certain point until we consider it swallowed? This reminds me of the new law or bill that was presented that makes um, conception occur at erection. I think that came out yesterday. So did the whale actually swallow? What do you think, Jill?
I don't think it actually swallowed it.
I think the whale's a spitter. I think the whale's a spitter. I don't think the whale swallowed. I'm just saying.
Okay, I have to agree with that.
Yeah, he was in and out. Like that's a spitter. They say that humans are like the worst tasting thing there is. And maybe the whale got the dude in his mouth and was like, fuck this. Maybe it was sour. I don't know. Maybe the guy had swamp ass.
Maybe he might have been not tasty at all.
Yeah. So that, I mean, prevention is key to these kind of things. If you go kayaking in the middle of the ocean, do it when you have a raging case of swamp ass. And, if anything happens, you'll just get spit out. Something to think about. Beth says she has more in common with the whale than she realized. Dude was sitting in the middle of a school of fish. I wondered about that. I didn't see it or know about it, but I wondered if he was somewhere he shouldn't have been. Obviously, he was somewhere he shouldn't have been, or he wouldn't have gotten whatever we're calling this that happened to him by the whale. He was no Jeffrey Dahmer type of whale. Do you think whales have conversations about the things they eat like we do? Do you think whales communicate and say, why do we eat all of the ugly sea life and not eat the pretty sea life?
Absolutely. Why wouldn't they?
Well, I don't know if they have the ability to reason on that level. I don't
So
know.
I'm thinking there has to be at least one Mr. Global well out there.
There is a Mr. Global whale currently speaking to other whales about philosophy on what's edible and what's not. Steve, I got some bad plankton last night. Um, yeah, that could totally be a thing. Whales are highly intelligent and, of course, they communicate. Yeah, I know they communicate. I was just curious on the level of communication. Well, we know that animals can look at something and you know rationalize whether they think it will taste good or not because they look at some things and they don't eat it and they look at other things and they do, right? So, if they do that and they also communicate, then maybe they communicate about that. If you're new around here, you're going to learn very quickly, as Jill knows all too well. Sometimes we talk about really weird shit. Um, I don't know why we're this way. We just are. We've always been this way. Brian seems to know a lot about whales, and whales have the ability to reason. They are highly intelligent with large brains relative to their body size. They also have specialized brain cells called spindle neurons. That's fascinating. The whale talk. We learn something all the time here, whether it's me or someone else. Someone is learning something. For some reason, I was under the impression that whales had really small brains, but I must have been thinking of some other animal, large animal that has a small brain. But I've heard that whales have their own alphabet, but didn't look it up. I wonder where whales would keep that. Brian also says they have a specialized brain cells called spindle neurons, which are linked to reasoning and other complex abilities. That's pretty cool. Brian says, I'm just reading the internet. That's okay, Brian. You know what? I'm pretty sure whales probably say is "fuck this shit." That's probably something they say. Is that true? Josh Shapiro is changing the name of the Delaware Bay to the Pennsylvania Bay. Is that true?
Not that I know of.
Well, Jill, you might want to look it up.
I doubt it. He isn't Trumper.
Oh, Scott says no. Okay. Well, I mean, I thought he might have proposed something like that just as like a joke or, to enlighten. It's like the conception at erection bill that was brought out. That was just to make fun of Republicans. They're not serious about it. So I thought maybe the guy from Pennsylvania did the same thing,
Well, I will tell you that Josh Shapiro is not that. I don't like, he's not a jokester like that. He's probably not going to do that.
I would.
I know. He kind of tries to keep things serious. It's pretty cool when he tries to keep things serious. Like, he didn't even do a speech on certain things that I thought he should have done on, but I mean, sometimes he jokes, don't get me wrong, but like, get shit done, right? He does that.
Do you think anyone asked Josh Shapiro if he's just joshing?
I would if he said something like, if he did say he was going to do that, I would be like, are you joshing us?
Why are you nebbing on the Delaware Bay, Josh?
What? Did you just ask why he's nebbing?
Lisa Marie says only about 1,000 times. And why is the U.S. coming back to the 1950? I don't know.
I think it's more like 1930s. Okay, Scott, it's going around Reddit as a joke. Nice. I'm gonna have to see if he said anything about it, if he's seen it.
What would Trump do if Mexico renamed the Gulf of California to the Gulf of Mexico? I don't know. He probably wouldn't do anything because he doesn't like California. But he might. It's hard to say. Mary says it's become a joke. Spritzer is renaming Lake Michigan Lake Illinois. I wonder what we'll see next. I wonder what we'll see next. All right, folks, it's 5:00. That means it's time to wrap it up. I got things to do. Jill has things to do. Thank you, everybody, for coming in and joining us today. I just got a news update. But I'm going to shut it down for the day. I appreciate all of you. Thanks for the super chats. Thanks for the gifts. Thanks for gifting my moderator, Jilly. And I will see all of you soon, same time tomorrow. I might do another live later this evening, on YouTube. I'm not sure. I'm thinking about it. I don't know. But thank you all for joining. I appreciate it so much. Thanks for your support.
Thank you, everyone, for the gifts.